Chasin The Racin, powered by Colchester Kawasaki. Part of the Global Moto Group, we supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.
3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin The Racin.
And welcome back to Chasin The Racin, sponsored by Colchester Kawasaki. Now, you two weren't here last time on the last episode. I totally balls that up. So I'm over the moon now that it's totally stepped up a level there. So click, buy, deliver. See? I've done it wrong there. Click, buy, deliver by Colchester Kawasaki. So, ladies and gentlemen, for my co-host this evening is the delicious, the delinquent, the useless of keeping a timetable, Josh Corner. How are we doing, son?
I'm very well, thank you. I wasn't that late, so don't give us too much stick. Sorry for making you wait.
Oh, it's all good, man. And our guest tonight is Manx Grand Prix winner, TT. Not really a newcomer. We'll go into that a little bit. So, first time coming to the TT this year, and more importantly, he's a doctor. So all the ladies listeners will be swooning at the spot here. How we doing, Dr. Stephen
I'm all right,
Smith?
boys. Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
I remember when you were Scouse and not a doctor.
Yeah.
Are you still Scouse? What's the story there? Where are you from in the country again?
Yeah. So I'm from Liverpool.
See how it picked up a knot there?
Yeah.
Picked up a knot there. I've never
So this is your local then?
This is my local.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I was about to say,
Aintry's my local.
Fair enough, yeah.
is that still going?
Still going. Yeah, it dropped off a little bit, didn't it?
Aye.
And then it was all stuff to do with like insurance or whatever. But now they've picked it back up. I think it was last year and then this year. So
there we go.
it's good. Yeah, it's a good track.
Well, I tell you what, we've been wanting to get you on the show for absolutely ages, but you're never actually in this country at all, So for a lot of people be listening, going, well, hold on, here we go. What's the story here? Let's just jump straight into it. You live in Austria.
Austria. Not Australia. A lot of people get that mixed up. It's like, you live where? And then you come back from where? But no, Austria. So.
And what the hell are you doing out there?
Just for work. I mean, at the end of sort of 2020.
Just for work.
I'm probably excited to hear this story because I sort of know it, but I don't know the juicy details, and I'm desperate.
I mean, it's not that like sort of exotic or anything. It's just I got offered a job out there for Red Bull, and then but it needed like relocating to Austria, so that's what we did. So I moved out there sort of just over 2 years ago now, at the end of 2020.
Just literally up
right in the middle of COVID, right in the middle of Brexit and all that, and
went for it.
Just went for it.
I tell you what, there'll be like what I'm really excited about was the fact that loads of people message to the show even, and like want to get in touch and want to get in sport, like get involved in sport, not just motorsport, but and. This is I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, you don't just suddenly wake up one day and go, I'm going to go work for Red Bull. That is a proper dream. It's actually a dream job for me. Imagine being involved in that kind of environment every day and day in and day out would be absolutely amazing. So let's, where we are now, we're at a BSB test and you're in preparation for your next chapter, which we'll talk into later on. But well, let's go from the beginning. Before you became a doctor, where like beating people up, taking granny's knickers off and stuff like that. What's your story, son?
Well, let's clear this up, right? Because
he's a doctor.
Because obviously I've got doctor. Like my official title is Dr. Stephen Smith, right? But
do you enjoy saying that?
I'm doctor because I've done a PhD. So when you've done a PhD, you can obviously change your title to doctor, right? But
which you would. Why would you not? I would.
Well, of course, yeah. Like when you say, "Oh, Mr. Stephen Smith," you go, "Hang on a minute." But
that 45 grand that PhD cost me, I'm changing it.
I've got to pay that back.
Yeah.
But
you can get out with that though, can't you? Is it student loans and stuff?
Oh, hang on, we'll talk about that next.
We'll talk about that next time. I know, but I want to actually talk about that. So, but anyway, carry on.
So, doctor is not actually like a protected title because obviously Dr. Dre is not a real doctor. Just like Professor Green is not a real professor. But having PhD after your name is like a protected term. So you can't sort of, you're not supposed to do it. So like my actual title is Stephen Smith PhD because I've done a PhD, but then you can kind of put doctor in front of your name. But I'm not a doctor like you'd go and see.
So you're not a medical doctor.
No. So it's like it's not like there's a doctor in the house.
So you're a doctor of what though?
What's your PhD? Yeah.
Well, PhD actually stands for Doctor of Philosophy. So PH is philosophy, and then the D is doctorate. So like the idea of doing a PhD is you come up with like a hypothesis, like a question that you want to prove, and then you do studies and research to prove the hypothesis right or wrong.
Right, okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Followed. So what did you prove?
Well,
I'm only minding you. I know it's not that cut and dry.
You can tell you're from Shields, aren't you? Well, you prove it, mate. Prove it. Show us the proof.
I mean, when I actually started my PhD, I actually did it in motocross. So we wanted to look at what the demands of motocross were. So in terms of like how hard it is physically, because obviously motocross is pretty hard, physically, right?
One of the most hardest sports in the world, I would say.
It's arguably got to be the... Well, you tell us, is it the hardest sport in the world? It's got to be.
Well, there's different elements, isn't there? I mean, what makes it hard is it's just physically really hard, and the amount of riding that they do. I mean, those lads, especially like the MXGP, it's just back-to-back, weekend after weekend, and you know what it's like. If you jump on a motocross bike, you're puffing,
blowing.
aren't you? Do you know
2 laps and I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I think the motocross riders is like they're probably the best riders, aren't they? Do you know what I mean when you watch them?
It's got to be. I remember reading years ago, like Jonathan Ray, and even his own words were, "I'm a failed motocross rider."
Yeah.
I'm thinking, hold on, how many world championships has he won?
6, isn't
Is it 6? And he's saying he's a failed motocrosser, which is a huge statement. And like Josh, it's like 2 laps and you're blowing out your gasket.
And they make it look easy, don't
It's
they?
such a hard discipline, isn't it? And they're physically, technically, like... you got to take your hats off to them. It's massive. That and enduro as well. I think enduro is just ridiculous as well.
But is that so? How did you get like? It taught me through how you went and got a PhD in motocross, because the amount of people listening to this going, that is one of the coolest things ever. Imagine standing there going, I have a PhD in geography. You sir? Yeah, motocross. That is class.
Yeah. So what is that? What it is?
So that's what it originally started off on. I sort of partnered up with a motocross coaching company. And the idea was that they were sort of coaching pro riders, and the idea was to do some research into what goes into motocross in terms of looking at how hard it is. So you look at heart rate, you take some blood measures and things like that, and you can say right, from that you can help determine the training and the nutrition sort of protocols from that. So like whenever you're working in a sport, you need to try and find out what the physical demands of that sport are, and then you can change the nutrition towards that. So you sort of make the nutrition fit the sport. So basically for a couple of years I was just flat out full time with a motocross company, going with the riders, British and all that, checking the blood and.
But like before we start tearing it apart, I'm really interested. To see results. No, you know what I mean. Being genuine, it's like it's going to be great, but we'll have to tear that down later on.
No problem,
and it's like, what's your background before taking the decision into going down a PhD in motocross? What was your upbringing like
with bikes?
Aye, you probably
always
nicked them. You are scouts.
It was always like trials. My dad was a big trials rider.
Yeah.
He's always doing like the Scottish 6 days and things like that. So I think he'd done about 14 of them. This was back in the day when you'd roll in at 5 o'clock in the morning
and then go
and then still go and do it, and he'd finish. Do you know what I mean? There's probably a bit of cheating involved.
No, it doesn't matter. No, people generally, that's one of the hardest events in motorsport. That people don't finish it. A lot of people don't finish it. Never mind pissed. You know what I mean?
So like a lot of us, you're sort of 3-4 years old, you get put on a Pee-wee 50, messing around in the garden and fields, and then it was just progressing through the trials. Really, TY80s, Fantics, and then. That was it. With the trials, I sort of did that until I was about 14, 15. And got all right at it, sort of got up to that national level, but just not good enough to get at the top of the nationals. That's when it got really serious. Everyone was, their dads have their own businesses and things like that, and they could afford to go out and do loads more riding. And
the typical sort of motorsport story for most kids, right?
Even at the lower level of like trials. Like, no, that's totally degraded. Like, the actual skill level that you need in trials is massive. But when you think that a bike costs you $2,500,
the financials are different, right?
$4,000 back then, weren't they? But now it's still like $8-9 for a trials bike.
Is that how much trials bike is?
Trials is probably the cheapest form of motorsport these days, though, isn't it?
But even then, you're already talking about how money separates. From you need hardcore cheddar, don't you, to actually go?
You just need to be on the bike, don't you? You need to be on the bike every other day. Whereas like my dad worked in, like Fords. So he'd be on like 3 different shifts and stuff. So there just wasn't the possibility to be going out on the motorbike every night and, not going to school and stuff. So, so it was trials. Worked up to that. And then that was until I was about 14, 15. And then took a little bit of a break from bikes. I think with the trials, it just got a little bit bored of it. Do you know what I mean? We were going up to doing some of the Scottish 2 days, which were mint, but then like 14, 15, 16-year-old lads do, you just sort of get a bit distracted. And
why are you laughing, Josh?
You put that, nights out and stuff like that. And then, but yeah, I mean, we did kind of talk about different types of riding. I remember asking my dad if we could start enduro, because that's what some of the other lads were going into.
I think that's quite a common switch, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not really, if you know what I mean. Like, no, in my opinion, you don't find a lot of trials lads stepping up into motocross.
No.
Like, I know what you mean about the endurance element, but you tend to find it's the other way around. You tend to find motocross lads then go to enduro, and then they go to trials, don't they?
Yeah.
Never. It's quite. That's.
But if you look at like the hard enduro,
that is.
The sort of top boys, the top boys. So you're like Billy, Johnny, Graham. They were all really good trials riders.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And then they've just got into motocross. Like Billy Bolt can ride a trials bike really, really well, and so can Johnny Walker.
Well, me and Chrissy interviewed him. Obviously, with him being a local lad, it was ideal. But even it's amazing how many of these. To be blunt, I'm not blowing smoke up. He's a rock star. He works incredibly hard in that. But how one discipline's they haven't reached the top of that discipline, and they've gone, you know what, I'm just going to try something else. Yeah. And how they've excelled. I mentioned him before, Jonathan Ray. How do you he wanted to be a GP motocross rider, and then gone, there you go, let's follow in Dad's footsteps and give this a go, and look what he became, kind of thing. But so you tried, like, what was your dad's opinion on the motocross scene? You growing up with trials with your dad, did he see it as a how did he look upon it?
Was never on the radar, because like none of my dad's never done motocross, so there was just like not that natural progression to say, let's go and try motocross. Do you know what I mean? It was like trials was just the only thing on the table, really. I mean, I remember him talking about maybe looking at like the Aprilia 125s,
like the super teen bike.
Yeah. But the problem was, like, you go to a trial, right? It's 10 quid to enter.
I was going to say it's about 20.
You probably use 1 or 2 rear tyres a year, because you'll turn the bloody thing round. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, what, 5 quid for your fuel? And then I wouldn't even know back then, but like road racing was a little bit of a... I remember some of the lads going and doing road racing. Do you know James Shipley?
I know that name, I know that name.
James was a really good trials rider, and then he started going road racing at Aintree, because I remember him showing me a picture of like a ZXR 400.
Yeah.
And like at the time I was probably only 14. I was like, whoa, fucking hell, like what is that? Do you know what I mean? And it just never clicked. But I think if we'd have picked that up and gone down that route,
you'd have been bankrupt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not actually, but
yeah, so that was it. Sort of took a bit of a break from trials at around, say, sort of 16, and then went and got a road bike, of all things, just to go and ride out on the road with a few of the boys and that. And then that was probably around...
What road bike would you have got? And what year we're talking here, if you don't mind us asking?
So that must have been around 2007. When I got like a ZX636 road bike. And
this is your first road bike?
Yeah, that was my first road bike. I had mopeds and things like that, but that was the first actual
proper thing, like.
Yeah. And then it was like, because my dad always had road bikes as well.
Right, I was wondering where the tarmac connection
came. Yeah, so we had the trials bikes, and then my dad would go out on a Sunday with his mates on the road bike, and I remember him sort of come into the house and I'd be like, fuck, I wish I could go out. Do you know what I mean? I remember the first time he took me out as a pillion on a Honda SP1, so that wasn't very comfy.
No. I don't think people are listening to this going, oh, I wonder how the comfort was. I think more people thinking your fingernails holding on in the back of them.
So that was it. I just used to watch him go out on the road bikes. I think, fancy that. So,
I like to go,
yeah. So we used to go out with him for on a Sunday, go out to North Wales and stuff, and then I met other people who were going a bit quicker. It's like you've probably heard it all before, and then you start scratching around on the roads of North Wales, and then you start getting a bit in trouble with the police and stuff. And then one of the
allegedly got in trouble.
That's the one.
How big's that number plate?
Yeah, they just tear you down for no reason, don't they?
But that was it. Like, that's what kind of stopped me with the road, was that, you know, you'd go out and it was like the police would stop you for your number plate, even if you weren't speeding, and it just sort of ruined it a little bit. But then one of the lads we were going out with, he said, "Do you want to do a track day?" And I was like, "What the fuck's a track day?" Just no.
But yeah.
Samuel.
It's amazing how many people who were involved in, like, I know you came from the trials background, but then you know your dad was out riding and stuff, but even not many people even know about track days. You even speak to people who are going out like on touring bikes, like, "Oh, can you do that?" You think, it's the 21st century, everyone's got a phone. It's you know what I mean, though, and people still are discovering track days. That's phenomenal, really.
I think track days are becoming such a more popular thing now. There's so many more options. I don't know about you, but I remember when we would have been, well, I remember you couldn't do them until you was 16. Some you had to be 18, then you had to be 16. No, then they let you be 16. Certain circuits, like MSV circuits, you had to be 18, I think.
You had to have a race license to do that.
So we would be like racing Superstock 600 at BSB and couldn't go on a track day because we weren't old enough.
Mental.
And it was really difficult. But like there's way more options now. There's like ACU license days and stuff like that. But they've massively grown in popularity, haven't they?
Yeah.
But it's a much safer option, right? You basically go and race with your mates on the road.
Yeah.
Which is just dangerous.
Well, it's funny really because like I got off the road because we were going too fast.
Yeah.
Because it was too dangerous. And now we're back racing on the road. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you kind of got away.
Yeah, but there's nothing coming the other way, right?
That's right.
It's legal.
Yeah. It's like I say, we sort of done a track day. It was here actually. Can't remember. That must have been like 2008 or something. And that was it then. I just thought,
I'm in.
Sell that road bike, and went and bought a steel frame 600 Honda.
Very nice.
That was it.
I tell you, I must ask, and this is probably the first time I've ever asked a guest this, but what were you like at school? No, but you know what I mean? But no, because like we've never talked about someone's like education straight off the bat. You know what I mean? It's a bit like I'm going to ask you the same question. But what were you like in school? I can't answer that. You can.
I can't.
I tell you what. I'll give you an example. I tried my hardest at school. Like I tried my hardest. It just did not sink in. You know, I used to sit back after, like, go to, like, lessons after, go to extra classes and everything. It just, like, how I'm a kinesthetic learner. That's the only thing I did learn. You know, it's like, the terminology, it's felt like hands-on learning, you know, like mechanics and obviously working on that. Yeah. But, like...
You learn by, like, doing, basically.
Yeah, right.
So. But what annoys me is how we're, like, as a national curriculum, we're based on the one style of education. Now, obviously, I'm not in education, far from it. You know, I couldn't wait to get out. You know, I'm having a bit of a dig at teachers here, but like, because you didn't fit the program, they gave up on you.
Yeah.
But you're not. It's not sinking in. You're not doing it, and then you had lads who like were wrong-uns, proper wrong-uns, and they would just absorb it like a sponge. Because that's how they worked. And you think, this does my head. I couldn't believe how frustrated I was getting at school. And that's how I went through it. And then I couldn't get out of school quick enough. But what were you like at school then? You know, sunk in.
Are you like an academic, naturally like an academic?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, before I did my PhD, I did a master's in sports nutrition, because you kind of have to do a master's before a PhD.
Right.
It's very rare that you can go straight into PhD. But my actual undergrad degree, so the first one you go to, was in teaching.
Right.
So I graduated and trained as a teacher in like science, in the different sciences.
God, I wish Chris. I miss Chrissy every day, but I wish he was here now, because I could have sat here, drank coffee, and a couple of teachers just praying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bitching about school.
I get the bitch about it now. You know what I mean? But seriously, carry on.
So because I hated school. I absolutely hated. I just hated going.
Yeah.
And it was the routine of being there at like whatever 8:30 and then being stuck in lessons, because it was just bored, because like some certain teachers have different ways of learning. They have different ways of teaching, and I'm a little bit like what you just said, where I learn by doing hands-on. Like I hate reading through textbooks and stuff. So I just absolutely hated school, but I've just put the work in and made sure that I got good grades, because my mum's a teacher.
I was about to ask. Obviously, we know your
You've
dad's
put yourself
son.
right in it. Yeah, you've seen.
No, it's good.
He's like teachers, fucking teachers.
I hate teachers. My mum works in a high school,
Oh,
but she deals with the wrong, and that's why I don't back answer my mum. I don't swear in front of my mother. I don't back answer my mother. I don't even look my mother straight in her eye if she's had a bad day. I'm like, hello, mother, you are. No, but it's interesting because obviously your dad's with the trials, going out with the lads and that element of it, which you've already described up to a point with your education. But was your mother the driving force at home for get it done school?
Like my mum and dad were both the sort of driving force. It was like, right, they're strict but fair. Do you know what I mean? It was like, right, you go into school whether you like it or not. I would have had to been half dead for my mum to let me take a day off school.
Yeah.
It was like, right,
I've got COVID. That doesn't even exist yet.
That would have been a good excuse back then. But yeah, it was like, you're going. Do you know what I mean? And you're going to apply yourself. So, I mean, that sort of hard work ethic was just always there. It's like, right, you're not going to fuck about at school. Like, if we got detention, like, I feared being back at home more than the teacher. Do you know what I mean? And,
I'll wash your car, miss. I'll do anything. Just don't put me in detention whenever you do.
Yeah.
I'm going to get battered.
And when you were younger and doing trials and stuff like that, did you have the mindset of like you wanted to have a career in motorsport, or that was it, and school was just, this is how I always thought of it, this was like, I just do this because you've got to, or you're going to get locked up. Like, I'm here, but actually all I care about is doing that.
Like the thought or the possibility of being like a pro rider was just not even on the radar. Like it just was never even, like, I never thought it was possible.
So it was very much a hobby for you, just very much like you loved it was life, but it was just...
That's another pet hate of mine, the fact that people call this sport a hobby.
It's not
a hobby. It's not. No, it's interesting.
It's not a hobby. It's not a hobby, but it's a good way to describe people's approach to it.
I know, but it's almost like, sorry, I'm totally died.
I didn't mean that in an insulted way, but
no. But you're right though. People almost go down like, oh, you see it as a hobby. It's like, well, hold on, it's.
That's my point. Did you see it as a hobby or did not? Because people say that to me, and they'll go, oh yeah, but it was a hobby. My dad says to me when we started mini bike racing, he's like, well, it was just a hobby. I'm like, it might have been to you. I'd never seen it as a hobby. Like,
no,
I'd never seen that.
Hold on. I know his dad. He never saw it as a hobby, man.
He probably didn't. But
I went round to their house, man. He's like, oh, I'll lend you this and lend you that. Honestly, it was Aladdin's cave of like super stock 1,000 riding. He's like, I've got a spare one of them. But it's just a bit of fun for me and the boy. I came out of there with trolley loads of like, I could run a team. Like,
but we still had a lot of stuff, but left over. Just them things that you don't get rid of. But that was the question. No, sorry, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it does feel insulting when people describe it as a hobby. It's absolutely not. But actually, there is also, and I'm a little bit envious of these people. There is a lot of people that think of it like that. We had this conversation before about young lads getting it and girls getting into mini bike racing and stuff like that, and like. So when I was 17, I'd been racing like 12 years.
That's mental.
That's mental.
And I was like, I was like not done with racing, but I'd properly fell out of love with a lot of what was going on. And when you realise all of the other things, because like life's happening to you at that point.
Yeah.
So it's happening to you, or you're trying to.
We've all been there.
Do you know what I mean? So you start to realise it, and it does change your perspective on it, and you can understand why. When I look back at lots of people that I grew up racing with, they did obviously just view it as a hobby. It was a very important one, but that was their football, that was their rugby.
Yes.
It is, so it is like that.
No, I mean, like growing up with the trials, I took it really seriously. Like going to bed early on a Sunday. Like obviously, everyone was saying, "We're going to this house party. Do you want to come?" No, I've got a trial the next day. Yeah. I remember being part of like a Cheshire Championship thing, and my mum booked like a weekend away for the family, and I was absolutely fuming because it meant I would have missed a trial. So I missed like birthdays, christenings, like all these family events because I wanted to go and be on the trials bike. But it was just never like that, the sort of option.
You never thought that's
No, I mean, I don't think it was like, maybe my parents were like, you're going to school and then you're going to get a job. It wasn't like...
That's very normal, that. It's very typical. Like,
looking back, I think if it'd been steered a little bit different, then it could have gone that way. But...
what, the professional route and trials?
Maybe just in motorsport. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously, like, I work with pretty high-end athletes and you kind of see different traits. And like, if you've got that sort of determination and like that sacrifice that you want to give up, you know, not a lot of 14, 15, 16-year-old kids want to give up going out with their mates to go and ride a trial in Frodsham. Do you know what I mean? Or go away for the weekend with your dad to Scotland to ride a trial. So, I mean, like, life was, for me, was just about riding the trials bike, but it was just never that sort of option.
You just never viewed it. You never thought.
It was just never a possibility. You know, the sort of path for me was always like, right, you're going to go to school, the trials is good, but you're going to go for a job. I mean, I might be wrong. My dad might watch this and go, "You're chatting shit." He might turn around and say,
but this is it's not your dad's interview, it's yours.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, at the time, it just never felt like that was going to
happen. Fair enough. Yeah, fair play. So, go on, sorry.
Here's a question, right? You know, I first got on a bike at 21. At no point, you know, did I, like, you know, I'm not a professional rider, you know, and no, of course you want to be, but considering you lads started younger in motorsport, you know, at what point did
That's a broad term, dicking around in a field.
No, but you know, see, the thing is, at what point did it stop being fun? See, for you, that was almost quite apparent. It was like, for years, fun, mini bikes, fun, and you must have got like 10, 9, and you're saying that now. Your parents are going, right, let's focus on the education, and you know, you took that on board, but at some point it went.
I could tell you, I could describe the exact moment and everything.
Where you thought, I was driving
a van home from here, that a van I had to borrow. If anything, everything that went wrong had gone wrong, and I still finished like relatively well in a stock 1000 race here in the wet, like 12th or something like that.
What age were you?
This was 2016. No, 16.
He's the youngest retired man that's ever been ever, you know,
like not even 20.
So at 20, no, but I'm talking about, like, you know, the build up to that.
I'd have been 18, 19.
So 18, 19 at that point, but you've gone from. At what point do you think, I want to be a professional rider? You know, at 18, 19, you were just like, it switched for you. Is that fair enough? It's like when you were young and you pulled your pants all the way to your ankles. One day you just stopped having a piss with your pants around your ankles. What can you remember the day you you figured out? Can you remember the day you stopped? You went, I don't have to pull my pants all the way down to my ankles here.
No,
you know, it just happens. You know what I mean? That is the best way to describe motorcycle racing ever. You just stop pulling your pants all the way down.
Actually, we should probably flip that question for you.
Bring that back, actually.
We should probably.
You're a good look. I couldn't do it. You're a good looking lad. You could get away with those things.
No one be looking at your face at that point.
Imagine him on the TT start line with his levers right down to his ankles, like, I can't be harried. I'm bringing it back.
Get some TV coverage, wouldn't it?
I had arrested in Douglas, not a problem. But you know what I mean, though. It's interesting because at some point it switches and go, I want to do this forever, and then you start going, how do I do this forever? Well, I have to get a job at it.
Yeah.
And then at some point that switches off. It's some cases switches off, and you go, I better get a proper job. You know, it's comparisons, because you've got a grown-up job. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's got a grown-up job. He's got a lush card. He works very hard. I don't know what it is, but and obviously you're a doctor. Who's not anyway? You are a doctor, 100% a doctor. But we should
probably ask you that question in reverse. When did you, like, for me, there wasn't a day when I wasn't racing a motorbike as a young child. Like, I was just obsessed with motorbikes and racing. Like, Carl Fogarty was the legend. I used to watch videotapes of it, sit on dad race mini bikes, and I used to sit on the bikes and watch them. Just from my earliest memories are just motorbikes. And I remember thinking, when I was like 15, 16, leaving school and getting a job, because I was like, my mum and dad were like, well, you got to work, especially if you want to race, because now you've got to pay for it. Yeah. So, and I remember just thinking, like, being like worried, like, I honestly don't know what I would do. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do, because all I wanted to do was race bikes, and I hadn't thought of any different. But you're sort of saying you had a, like, maybe some more grounded upbringing in that sense, and that you were very, you know, going to school and focusing on you were going to get a job, and racing was this maybe not a secondary thing, but you were accepting it wasn't going to be a career. When did that change? Because you've gone on to have some amazing achievements in racing. When did that switch for you?
And a career in motorsport, you know what I mean? It's switched, hasn't it?
And did one influence the other?
Aye.
I think what happened was I left school and, like I said, my dad worked for Land Rover or Jaguar, what it was, and they were advertising for apprenticeships. So that was it. Do you know, there was no other option. Then
You go in there,
right?
yeah.
This is what we're going to get you a job here. You're going to apply for it, and that was it. So at 16, left school, went to work for Jaguar Land Rover to do like an apprenticeship in engineering.
Right, I thought, with the masters and everything, I thought it'd been school and then sixth form.
No,
it doesn't always work that way.
So,
It doesn't always work that way.
I
it's
didn't
interesting.
do my masters until I was like, must have been 26, 27.
Bloody hell.
And I didn't do my teaching degree until I was like 21. So, no, 23, around
So
23.
16, apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Let's go from
For
there.
Jaguar Land Rover.
Yeah.
So
Get your overalls on.
Yeah. So that was it, working on lathes, milling machines, working in the factory in Halewood, doing like 3 shifts, like earlies, late nights and all that. And I absolutely hated every day.
Did you?
Because it was just, I enjoyed the engineering, I still do. I mean, like, figuring out how things are made and working and things like that, but it was just like being in the factory every day.
Yeah.
It was like... And
It's like being back at school, right?
Yeah.
But you're getting paid for it.
This is fucking shit.
Yeah.
And like, you're 16, and when you're in a factory, you have to grow up fucking quick, right? Because otherwise...
Piss taking.
and
Well, you're always
they don't hold
7'2".
back. I've always been big, do you know what I mean?
I can't imagine picking on you.
But yeah,
Shit, what was that?
What did you say? But so I just hated it. It was just because I was just so bored. Because obviously, if nothing's broken, you don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
And then you go and doing night shifts. I mean,
That just sums up Land Rover, that.
yeah, wouldn't fucking buy one. But you bought a Land Rover, fucking hell. But.
Anyway, it was good enough to get you out of the shit tonight, wasn't it?
It was indeed. Anyway, continue.
Wasn't made between 2009.
Oh, I don't want to know. Just had a bill for it. I don't want to know.
Chassis number 742. Do not get in it. Do not get in it.
Sorry, I probably interrupted you.
Stranger things have happened.
Have you actually done that? Have you just kept in a car on a night
Mate,
shift?
we do all sorts.
Oh, wait,
of
come on.
night shifts.
What's your
It's
best
fucking
night shift
crazy.
story?
I mean, I can't remember anything now.
You can't.
Just doing stupid shit like that, like sleeping in the cars and finding like little holes to go and hide in the factory, and then your mate would ring you when the foreman's coming around and stuff.
Yeah.
Remember, because I've always been into like training and like go in the gym and stuff, and there was like stairs in the gym that would go up to the actual gym in the factory. So I'd run up and down the stairs, and then I managed to get the key to the gym, and then one night I got caught in there and got absolutely fucking bollocked, because obviously I was supposed to be doing work and I got caught training. So that was it. So I got straight march.
There's him sweat running off and PB and like.
Back down. Just give us 10 minutes. I've got a few more sets to do. But
So like now we're talking about your PhD element, the training and obviously that obsession and that side of things. So have you always been, what's the term for it? A gym rat? Have you always been a gym
little bit, yeah. I mean, I was always sort of good at sport in school, and then, I mean, we'll go down that route, and then go back to sort of what stopped making it everything fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, just I've always sort of been good at sport in school, and then like just sort of progressed. You start going to the gym, and then started doing all sorts of like sort of went down the combat sports route, just to try and get nice and fit and that, and then. Now it's more like endurance sport, like cycling and running, that kind of thing. But not like a gym rat, but I've always just kept myself fit, Even if I didn't race bikes, it would be.
So like you say, you go into a factory doing triple shifts, and like it must have been.
It was just shit, Yeah. Like it was just shit,
So you got how long were you there before you then went to? Before you then said, "I'm going to go back to school."
So it was 21. Yeah. I remember
so 16 to 21, so 16, a good stint to like get you into the world of work and know what's happening. And
so I did like the 4-year apprenticeship, and I'm sort of one of them people, like if I start something I finish it, and that was always like mum and dad sort of pushing me as well. Like,
but you tick the box with your parents then, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to finish it, Even before I finished my apprenticeship, they were like, I wanted to leave, but they were saying, no, you're going to finish it. And then
you've got it then, haven't you?
You've got it then.
So then did you go straight back to uni and like in Freshers Week getting lashed every night in that?
So obviously
90 pence drinks on a Tuesday night in that class.
Exactly. You know how it is. So it was like,
I never went to uni, but I did all of that.
You did it anyway. I still do it now.
What you're studying?
I used to just tag along with all my mates who went to Newcastle. Anyway, sorry.
But so obviously you can imagine like when from working in a factory at 16 to 21, doing like all this like regimented work, 3 weeks off a year and all this sort of shit. And then it was like, right, I'm going to go back to uni and sort of do something that I'm a bit more interested in. So you can imagine it was like, fucking hell, you know.
Like
it was just a different
life-changing,
world.
yeah.
Were you still at home or like still at home at this point?
No. So
right.
When I was about 21 and I wasn't riding bikes and I was going out every weekend, you know what I mean, just doing what you do.
Yeah, living a bit of life.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time when my mum just said, Stephen, I think it's time you moved out.
Did you really?
Yeah. That was the actual words she said. She said, I think it's time you moved out. So
easy P45.
Yeah. So that was it. I mean,
that's quite brutal to hear, isn't it?
No,
it was probably deserved, but yeah, she just said, right, it's time you moved out. And then good thing about working in the factory is that you were earning money. So I had money for a house and then bought a house. So at 21 and then moved out, basically.
Fair play, because like it's interesting because like to go back into full-time was it full-time education?
Yeah, full-time,
full-time education. You know, that's a hell of a
student loaned up with a hilt.
Yeah,
well, that's that side of thing. You know, if you lived at home, you can sit. Well, people do it, don't they? They have to live at home to be able to afford to go to university and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you bought a house,
and then left work the year after.
The stones on you, son.
That's big commitment. That fair play.
And this was like, I didn't know at the time, but this was like after all the housing prices crashed and stuff like that. So I just paid whatever it was for this house.
Big money for it.
Yeah. And then the year after, it was probably worth like 10 grand less or something like that. And then it was doing like, you know, sort of doing the house up and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I just got by. I just did odd jobs and stuff like that. And like, obviously, like my mum and my dad, especially my dad, because he worked in the factory, he was not happy about me leaving. But once they'd sort of explained the reasons why, and they understood that I hated it in there and I was actually going to go and do something else.
You don't have to do like fit carpets or anything like that. You're off for an education.
Yeah, but again,
I feel like I just slagged off carpet fitters there. No, I apologise to any carpet fitters there.
Yeah, but sometimes when you're like...
a lovely job.
Lundy that, so there you go.
I get it because... I did a similar thing when I was 16. I left school, like the day I left school, had a job. I remember bunking off school to go for the interview for this job and was training to be a civil engineer. And like I remember me nana and granddad and that, they were like, you have made it. Like, you go and get qualified at that. The company was sponsoring you to go to uni and stuff. Yeah. And it was like, you've made it. You never need to do anything ever else in your life. And I fucking hated it. Yeah. I hated it. For 3 years, I stuck it out or something. And I like started going to college. And I remember just thinking, I don't want to do this. I was still racing at the time and stuff anyway, but just inspired us to do something else. And but they don't know that, do they? Because they've only ever, like, when they were with the greatest respect to the generation I'm talking about here.
It is a different generation.
Where I live, they would have gone down a pit or they'd have gone in a shipyard. Like, that's what they did. So you just worked that and you just accepted that's what you did. But you know, I think our generation's a little different in that there's been way more opportunity for to do things like that they wouldn't have experienced. So I get why they wouldn't understand it.
But you're talking about our generation now, and like that is serious stones on you to actually go. No, you know what I mean. I'm quitting a job. And you still had a mortgage at this point, you know what I mean? I'm going to go and get an education to become... But so you thought, I've had enough of the factory, I'm off to get an education. At that point, what was the end goal? You know, like what were you aiming to be at career-wise?
Honestly, I didn't have a clue. I just sort of made it up as I went along. I mean...
Yeah, but
I think because like when you're 20,
when you're like 20, 21, you think you know everything, don't you? But it was like... Right, okay. I sort of when I was like when I left the factory, I sort of took a year sort of off sick, right? And
on me back.
But
too many words.
I went into schools and did a few days here and there, just like shadowing the teachers and stuff, you know, doing the PE PE teaching. And I thought, this is good, this, you know what I mean? It was like it was enjoyable, got on with the kids. Because like I said, I hated school. So I kind of thought, right, I want to go into school and try and
make kids not hate school.
Make a fucking difference. You know, not be one of these teachers that's like, here's your book, do this. I kind of wanted to make kids like us enjoy school a little bit. But
you can include me in that. I hate it as well.
The school haters.
Yeah.
So
new podcast.
Sounds like a pub quiz.
So where did racing come in? Because we're piecing the whole story together nicely now. But where did you go? Like, I'm going to start. I mean, you've done some track days by this point. Like, where you at? What are you thinking?
Racing started the minute I rediscovered the TT, which kind of segues us quite nicely into that. So what
rediscovered?
What I mean is, like, growing up on bikes, road racing was. I didn't even sort of contemplate it existed. I'd come here with my dad to watch BSB, but it was just like, this is when the Ducatis were winning everything, and it was like, yeah, this is cool, but it was like, it was trials. Do you know what I mean? Trials,
that's what you were doing. This was cool, but
this was like, okay. But then once we started going back out on the road bikes, like, you know, riding round, those lads went to the TT, and I kind of remembered about the TT then, because obviously when you're that much into like trials or something, like, the TT is just like this crazy
thing over on there, right?
Yeah. Contemplate, like, obviously around that time it was like Jeffries, and I didn't even know who these guys were. So then once I saw what the TT was, I don't know, it was just something like, right, that's what I want to do. How do I get to do that? Right, okay, you need to start racing. And it was like, okay, let's go. And that was it. So the only reason I really started racing was to go with the TT.
And how? Sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was just about to say, it's like, obviously the TT being the aim there, the TT. What made you go down? Well, your first time around the Isle of Man. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's even go further back. Was the Isle of Man your first road race?
That's a good question. Yeah.
It was my first ever road race.
Was it really?
My first time I ever did a road race was down Bray Hill. I think that's how we, funny enough, met. Were you working for James?
I was working with Alistair.
Oh, here we go. He's
Ali Bailey. Alistair Bailey.
What a man! Shout out, Skemsdale fella, near Liverpool, but not quite. There you go.
Yeah, because you were there with your dad. Weren't you? Your dad riding?
I grew up with the Isle of Man. You know what I mean? Our family holiday was going to the Isle of Man, so it was like, I want to do this kind of. Anyway, that's my crappy little story. But it's like, so what made you think, let's go down the Manx route? And how did you discover the Manx route?
I think, like a lot of other people, I didn't even know what the Manx was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It was like, right, we're going to go with the TT. And then I remember thinking, like, I remember speaking to someone and saying, well, what happens if I go with the TT and I'm not fast enough? And then he said, well, why don't you do the Manx? And I said, what's the Manx? And then he told me it was like, it's the same track, it's just a bit, and I was like, easy, let's do that.
It's just a different event sort of thing.
Yeah. He said, why don't you go and do the Manx? So that was it.
It's like, honestly, there is massive segregation between the events. There is, you know, it's like the Manx Grand Prix is a club, and then the Isle of Man TT is run by the government.
Right
now, it's coming up to the 100th year, isn't it? Yeah. The Manx this year coming, isn't it? And you're thinking, well, when you think the TT is 100 and
1907.
1907.
So what's
so
that?
There's not a lot of...
I wasn't a maths teacher.
No. Look, you're more educated. Well, go on then. I definitely can't figure that out.
When did you say 1907?
Yeah, 2007 was the centenary.
Yeah, so 23 now, 10, 13 years difference.
There you are. So, so it's amazing how people know of the TT and then are shocked to hear about the Manx. You know, when you think the actual timeline.
Yeah.
It's not like the Manx turned up.
16 years, sorry.
16 years.
Someone's going to correct us on that. I'm just thinking
put a comment. Click
Where's Grace?
I know. Grace would have think, like, I tell you what, Grace is just a carbon copy of Chrissy.
Oh, really?
It's just there.
Yeah.
Proper brain box.
Teacher, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, God, them two. It's like decoding the Matrix. You know what I mean? But it's amazing how people have not really heard of the Manx.
Yeah. And like I said, no one ever mentioned it before that conversation. And then it was obvious, like, right, okay, you can go there, you can cut your teeth there a little bit and learn it, and then gradually step up.
So how many years have you done the Manx then?
Yeah.
So the first time I did the Manx was 2013, and like then I've done 6 of them, but I've missed a few years for.
So you haven't done 10 consecutive years?
No, I did.
COVID always knacks the TT. You know, people say, "Oh, it's been going for that long." It's like we got to subtract the 2 years out of that all the time, haven't you? You know what I mean? But like you say, so
I sort of went and then missed a couple of years with like kids and like. So
you've got kids.
Oh, they'll ruin it for you.
Yeah.
You've got how many? We'll kind of skip that. Went to the education straight at the Manx. It's a bit all right. So
little girls. So.
Congratulations! There you go. Happy days. Did she know you moved out the house? You got a house now? Did you sell the house? I feel like we missed a massive chapter of your life here. But anyway, no. But let's go back to the Manx. So it was like you had a couple of years out to have the family.
Yeah. So I did 2013.
Yeah.
And then I missed the year after because I just had no money, so I couldn't go racing. And then 2015, again, I wasn't really sort of planning to do anything. No, sorry, 2014 was when I was doing like my masters and stuff, so I just had no money because I was at uni. But then 2015, I remember.
So you don't do things by half day, so it's like I buy a house, I'll quit my job, and then I'll get a masters at this point, and then so now you went from I'll go racing, I'll have a family now, and then then I'll quit, I'll stop doing that, and then and now I'll quit my job again to go and get another degree. You've got some stones on you, to be fair.
I said I just make it up as I go along, but so like 2000, I missed 2014 for life basically, and then 2015 was when I started my PhD, but I went back and done the Manx that year. But again, I had no money, so I went and bought. How that year came about, right, was I wasn't planning on racing, but then a lad I went to school with, he has like a big international moving company, and I was still trying to get sponsors and stuff, and he said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 500 quid. And at the time, that was like,
thank you very much.
Right, so I thought, I've got 500 quid, let's go with the Manx. So I did all the signatures that year at Three Sisters in Aintree on a steel frame 600 that I bought off like a mate of a mate. And it was like, right, I'm going to get these signatures just to go and do the Manx Grand Prix on this steel frame 600. And I'll never forget my dad's face, because he said, well, what are you going to do the Manx on? I said, I'm going to do it on this steely. And he went, You're not. You're not. I said, I'll lend you some money for that bike. And we went out and bought a GSXR 600. But I was determined to do it. You know, it was like, right, because that's all racing was ever about, was the Isle of Man. So it was like, right.
Yeah. What was your parents' attitude to all this? You know, they seem strict but laid back in the same breath, you know, to make decisions that you have up to this point. You know, it's like, go on then. You know,
I mean, my mum sort of like hates me doing it, but she's happy when you do well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but she'd obviously
that's a standard response, that, isn't it? Yeah.
She'd rather me not do it, but she's happy when you're sort of doing well. But
I've got this lovely domino set over here. No.
But my dad was sort of, I guess he was happy that I was doing it. Do you know what I mean?
No, like,
back into bikes, you know, after a bit of a break off, and then he'd come to the racing with me and stuff, and then he'd come to the Isle of Man. You know, it's like you just have a bit of crack with your dad and stuff like that, don't you? You know, and it was just nice to sort of have that thing to do together.
So your first time around the Isle of Man, Gixxer 600,
750,
even better. Oh, so that would have been, so you can't race at the Manx Grand Prix 1000cc.
No.
But
right, okay.
You can't race 1000, but you've got the junior race and the senior race. Mm-hmm. So previously you could do the senior race on a 750 up to a 750 class, but a lot of people are running the junior, which was up to 600, and then entering that 600 into the senior.
You could also do your newcomers race, the newcomers A on a 750.
Yeah.
So the same lad I had the conversation with about the Manx, he said, why don't you do that? He was like, you're a big lad, you need a 750. And it was a totally wrong decision.
Right.
It's like, obviously a 750 is probably 140, 150 horsepower. And it was just too much. Do you know what I mean? You're better off doing probably did you go on a twin?
I went on my twin,
Yeah, I think like going on a twin or...
Was that what you did? Is that what you first went on?
It was my first race bike. It had a standard shock in it, SV6, standard brake lines on it.
I can well imagine.
Like nothing. There was more money in the paint job. Then going
It's like
down
these
it.
new
No tyre warmers, nothing.
My head fell off when you said that.
No, honestly, I didn't.
You told me this a few weeks ago, and I was like, I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
But it was the same.
But
'cause,
fair
like,
play to you.
I didn't know anything about racing.
Aye?
It was all like, you don't have tyre warmers on a trials bike. So I remember buying this Steely 600 and I went out to Anglesey or something. Took the bike to the dyno the week after. And I was like, he was like, well, what's it like? I said, it's shit. It doesn't handle very well. And he looked at the tyres and he went, Steve, those tyres are 9 years old. And I was like, fuck, what tyres have dates? You know, it was just like so fucking new. And he was like, did you put your tyre warmers on? I was like,
What's them?
what's a warmer? You know, it was just, you'd just turn up with this Steely and ride it round, and that's how it was.
You know what it is? Wasn't the whole human race happier when it was naive? You know what I mean? At that point, you were having the time of your life, just going out racing bikes. You had no idea about now. Same with me. And then suddenly someone gets tyre warmers, and then every meeting you go to, where's my tyre warmers? I need my tyre warmers. I'm not going out there without my tyre. It's amazing how it just gets in your head and takes away. But so you went to the Isle of Man.
Yep.
You got talked into getting a 750. Your dad's helped you out with that.
Yeah.
Did it live up to your expectations?
I think it was just like massively so. I think it was just like a massive, you know, in like a rabbit in the headlights, and you've been riding around on the road and you think you're fast,
then you're there,
and then you get there and you get completely smoked. Do you know what I mean? I remember someone like coming past me, and you know, like your newcomers lap, and it was like there was probably 3 or 4 of us, and it was like, what the fuck, you know? And everything's going past you. It's different it's completely different to a track, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You sort of, there's like hedges, and what got me was like the openness and the cold. You know what I mean? Because it was like in the evening. Right. You go down Bray Hill, and it's like, up until that point, you've done it in a bus, you've done it in a car, and you're thinking, shit, I can go on the other side of the road now. And then
the heat, and that never changes. And you like, it's great speaking over TT.
Do you have to adjust your brain to know go on the wrong side of the road?
Nah, not at all. Not, you know what? It's not like that. Like at all. I don't think anyway. You know what I mean? You get there. You know, when it's like driving to work. You know the road. You know what I mean? And then you forget about everything around that. You just get to a spot. But what I love about the Isle of Man, particularly, is you're talking about atmospherics, and that never changes.
No.
You go
100%.
through like Douglas, and it's warm. And then you start climbing out of Ramsey, and you can feel the temperature. You can smell the air difference.
Smell it different.
You can, like, you know.
Does that make you cautious?
Nah.
No, it just sort of reminds you where you are a little bit.
It's amazing.
Oh, right, okay. But what gets you is like when you're riding around sometimes, and someone's got a barbecue going.
You smell it,
and you can smell it, and you think,
keep it as a sausage flour.
I tell you what, I remember the 2019 senior, man. You know when you come over Conkyvody, is that the 11th?
Yeah.
The 11th. You know when you tip in through the 11th ride? I remember coming through the 11th every time, and through this bottomless edge, there was this bloke in budgie smugglers with a barbecue flick, and it was like that rabbit in the headlights. I'm going, that bloke has no shame. And I remember like 17 minutes later coming back around going, that bloke still has no shame. It was just this edge. That is scalded into my mind. This bloke just living there going, the Isle of Man TT races. And I'm like, sick. Honestly, he was like that. It was just, what am I looking at? And he just...
But it's mad, isn't it? Like, you go down there and you can pick people out in the crowd.
Yeah.
Even though you're doing like, 140, 150 mile an hour, whatever. You go down and you can pick people out in the crowd, different corners and stuff like that. And
how many nights, in your opinion, so we'll go back to your first time at the Manx, but in your opinion, how many nights does it take to adjust for you?
I mean, what I think's mental is that you go out with the like ex-rider, you know, the whoever takes you out for, and there's probably 10 of you in a group, isn't there?
Yeah.
And then you come in and you're like,
wired.
Yeah. And
you can't hold a conversation together, nothing, no one.
No, you're just spitting feathers. Do you know what I mean? Your mouth's that dry.
Yeah.
Everyone's the same though, and anyone who's telling you different is a liar. No, I shit you not.
So when you go back your first night, it'll just be like,
you know, for me, and I'm not sure if it's the same for you, 3 nights. It takes me
to get stuck in. I mean, the first time, I mean, like as I said, you go out and then there's no like, okay, you can put the bike away. You back out 10 minutes by yourself, like as a newcomer. So you do like 1 lap behind somebody, and then 10 minutes later.
What's your mindset when you're doing that? Are you like thinking, do you know? do you think, like, obviously on a short circuit, you're just like, oh, fuck, I'm going to go here. But are you more thinking, just be safe, just be steady, like, just... You're like, fuck it.
You know what? It's enjoyment. We had this conversation on the last pod. It's like people, because the TTs ran for so long, statistically it is dangerous. But I've had this conversation with Chrissy loads. The TT is an inanimate object. The road doesn't move. The riders make it dangerous. So when you start racing around there, yes, you're going like keep it safe and stuff, but you're just saying you're enjoying it that much, and when you're enjoying something,
you just keep going.
You just want to go faster.
Yeah. It's just natural to go quicker, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
But I suppose that
like,
what I mean is, like, you wouldn't take yeah, I'm asking the wrong question, really.
No, but you're right.
An unnecessary risk as such there.
But like for me, like this is my third time ever at Oulton Park, and I'm tipping in the corners even today, going, where is it going?
Yeah.
That's the same on a road. For me, you know what I mean? I'm going, there it is, but then the next lap you come around and going, there it is, whoop, and it's the same at the TT.
Yeah.
But obviously the TT is such a heightened speed sensation, everything's like pumping.
Yeah. I mean, what I struggled with at the Isle of Man was like building up and pushing harder. Do you know what I mean? Because it was like, okay, I know where the track's going, but it's not like here where you can afford to find the limit a bit more and push and be a bit braver. Whereas at the Isle of Man, you've got to give it a bit more respect. So I really sort of struggled with that, is in terms of like pushing up. If I got stuck, if I caught someone, or if a quicker rider come past me, I could stay with them, and that's what like sort of jumped my lap times up. I mean, I remember it was probably the 15 one, and Dan Sale came past me on a little Moto 3 bike or something like that, what he rides. And he come past me, I can't remember where, but I just sort of tagged onto the back of him. And
I suppose that would have been lovely if you're on a 600, because you'd have had the power to do that.
I just followed him around the corners, and then even going down Sulby Straight, obviously I could have just gone like that. I pulled up next to him and we sort of looked at each other, and then I just let him go, and then just pulled him through. And I think I did like a 116 that night without even trying. Yeah. And that's the thing about the Isle of Man, is like, you have these little moments, don't you, where it's just a little bit special.
Yeah.
You know, where something happens that you can't really do here.
And you're just like, that's just cool.
It was just that's something that'll just stick with me forever. I mean, and doing that with Dan, who was obviously at that time was like a TT sidecar superstar.
Yeah.
It was just mint, you know. And then I remember as well, the same thing happened with Nick Jeffries, TT winner, and he was on a classic superbike, and he come past me going around the gooseneck, and I thought, I'll stick with him here, and just followed him all the way home. And then it was in the evening, so you have all this like sunset and all this sort of shit, and it was like, this is
where I am. Yeah, I get what you do.
And you don't really get that anywhere else. I mean, today,
but you're hyper focused for such a it's different, isn't it? It's just different.
You know, just following John, just little things like that. But that's what I mean. The Isle of Man, you get to do these really cool things.
What are you riding here? Sorry, Stephen, the only stocker.
Yeah,
we'll have to get into that bit. We'll have to get into that bit soon, but.
Oh, it's okay.
It's okay.
So it's all right.
So you've done.
He hasn't bored me today.
You've done the Manx. You've done it a couple of times. You've had the family. Let's talk about where you were getting to. Like, so COVID, you decided. Like, let's talk about the COVID years and moving to Austria and your career now.
I love the racing, but I'm interested in this.
One thing about the family thing, right, was I did the Manx 17 and 18.
Yes.
And then I thought, right, 19, we'll go the TT.
Ah, right.
So we were supposed to go the TT in 19. Right?
And you had that extra bottle of wine that one night.
She was looking hot.
100%. Right. So next minute, the wife says,
come on.
Pregnant again. I was like, oh, happy days, you know what I mean?
Oh, look, she's gone and got herself pregnant.
Made up. Obviously, I was made up, right?
There's you putting a listing on eBay for your bike. Well, dreams.
And I was like, obviously, made up, right? Another kid. And then I'm sat there one night and I'm going, hang on a minute. October, November, December. Bastard. Right,
TT, baby.
That's an ongoing issue for you. That
it is, yeah. Because now my little girl's birthday, that year, I think it was the first night of practice. She was due that day, so obviously
I mean, the Isle of Man's got a lovely hospital.
I know, but my missus hates bikes. So.
I've gone in the labour, but have you seen me lap time?
I'm just going out. Good luck. You know what I mean? So
20 minutes.
It was one of them. You couldn't win then, could you? Like if I'd come the Isle of Man, my mind would have been on that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
you know
did the right thing
and,
there. Yeah.
And so, yeah. Anyway, went back to Manx, and it kind of worked out well because that was my first podium at the Manx that year. Got second in the junior race, and then.
You know when we've talked a lot like throughout this interview. It's the fact of like, you know, you're seeing your ambitions, you're seeing the goal. Did you see the podium coming?
No, because I didn't have any pit boards or anything. I mean, obviously I got a little bit quicker and quicker, and I'd sort of been around the fifths and sixths and all that sort of stuff.
So you knew you were capable of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, in practice I was sort of P2, P3, just never had that P1.
Right.
And then everybody else got a little bit quicker, and I mean, there was always good lads around that time. I mean, Nathan, Matt, you know, and Trev. So there was always like a good train of lads. I mean, even James Hines as well coming through, and so it was all those boys coming through. And then that race in the junior, it was just a complete surprise because I just went out, no pit boards. Just having, just riding around in my own little world. And then I remember coming in to the pit and nobody said anything to me. And I left the pit and Nathan got a speed penalty. So I was actually leading that race. But obviously you just didn't know because I was just riding around with no pit boards and stuff. So then when I came into the Parc Ferme after and they put you into the winner's enclosure, I kind of went looked round and he said, yeah. And that was just like amazing.
Yeah.
Because it was like completely And
you're like, which one?
Yeah. And they said, because they didn't really know. And then they said number 2. And I was like, fucking hell. Do you know what I mean?
It's a bit amazing.
So for like 10 seconds you went, fucking hell, second. Then you went, fuck's sake, I wonder how far off the winner was.
Where's my pit board?
But I mean, like to get second was just amazing. Your first podium at the Isle of Man. And I mean, in some ways it kind of felt like not better, but it was just when I won, I knew I'd won because I was getting pit boards everywhere.
So you knew where you're at, like.
Yeah, so I did.
That elation had
I got that second, and I'd put so much work in getting up to that point. And you know what it's like at the Isle of Man. You have some good years, some bad years with bikes like breaking down and all these things. And
but you see, you've gone from this is where it gets good because you've gone from your podium. And then the 2 years off with COVID.
Yeah.
And then, we'll talk about the win after, but it's like you've decided to uproot the whole family.
Yeah.
And go to Austria.
You know what it is? When you said that there, that never even crossed my mind.
No, he's literally
2 little girls and the missus and everything took
they had to all go. So, yeah.
Fair play.
Well, yeah, it was a bit of a funny conversation on the phone to the wife, because
I did it over the phone. Good man.
I was actually, and to make it worse, I was driving to Silverstone for a race weekend, so I'd left her with the kids, and then I had to call her and say, right, we're moving to fucking Austria.
No wonder she hates bikes.
To digressing slightly, what is your job? You work for Red Bull,
yeah,
but you don't hand out cans of Red Bull, right?
Well,
no, I wouldn't mind it.
It's warm in here, Dom.
So, it is a bit warm.
Look, I'm not the weatherman, son. I can't change that.
The heater's on.
It's off, is it?
No, it's on.
Well, turn it off then.
It's on Jonathan Palmer's electric.
Turn it up.
So basically, I saw the job advertised, and so I'm trained as a nutritionist, like what we call performance nutritionist. So like my sort of speciality is making athletes faster, stronger, help them lose weight, that kind of thing. And saw this. So around that time, before I got the job, I'd sort of set up my own consultancy, shall we say? Working with like enduro, motocross, triathlon, all these different things, and then I saw the job advertised on fucking Twitter of all places.
Really?
And it was just a picture of this lake, which is now 10 minutes from my house. And it was like, Jesus Christ. So it was an advertisement for a role of a performance nutritionist with Red Bull. And obviously with my background in motorsport, background in motocross, and then growing up with bikes, and I'd sort of helped like some downhill riders as well. It was like, right, that's what we're doing. So I applied for it and then didn't hear anything for a while. I went for the interview, and this was in 2020. So it was just before COVID all kicked
Where
off.
did you go for the interview? Was it in
I went
person?
to Austria. Yeah, so Red Bull flew me out, paid for a hotel, paid for all the flights.
Whoa.
For like 2 days in Austria, which was just like...
You know, when you were applying for the job, like, how realistic did you think? Like, if I applied for a job at Red Bull, you just think that is just not going to happen. You know, the amount of applicants must have been
there was a fair few. I mean, I was fairly confident because obviously you get like a job description, and I had all the qualifications.
Do you think your racing helped?
I think so, yeah, because obviously, like with the guys you deal with at Red Bull, not in terms of like the management employees, but I mean the actual athletes, is when you can talk their language a little bit, especially the MotoGP guys.
Yeah.
When you can sort of talk to them about being on the bike and explain, like, understand how it feels on the bike. And even with the downhill guys, I mean, it's such a different sort of environment to say football or rugby or whatever. Yeah. And like Red Bull as a company have quite a good philosophy in that they want you to try and do cool stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's not like...
So they support you in that.
Yeah, it's not like the fucking factory where it's just like, it's just shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's a cool company to work for. So I told them about like why I'm interested in the job because of my background in extreme sports and things. And I guess that did help in some way.
Excellent.
So I remember getting the phone call. Like I said, I was on the way to Silverstone. Everything all right?
Yeah, no.
And they said, you know, do you want this? The job's there if you want it. And I was like, fucking right, I do. So obviously that weekend in Silverstone, I was just buzzing because it was and then I rang the missus and I said, well, remember that job I went for in Austria? And she was like, yeah, because obviously this was a few months later, and I thought, like, job's fucked. It wasn't. I didn't know. And then she said, sorry, fucking dad.
I'm watching this live. Don't ask how, but I'm watching.
He said, what did you just fucking do?
He says, you know that money I lent you for that jigsaw, you never actually paid it back?
Yeah.
Send me an invoice. But that's another story. That's why he's called Slippery Smith, and that's where the slips racing things come from.
I was going to ask that later on, so there we go.
We'll get to that later. But so that was a call. You know, it was like, right, love. You remember that job I went for in Austria? Yeah.
We've got it.
I've got it. Yeah. So we're going, and so that was in September, and they said, "Can you start in October?" So they said, "Can you start in November?" So I had to move everything like in that sort of September, October time, which was when COVID was kicking off. So I went there.
Whoa.
I went to Austria at the end of October, started in November, and my wife had to stay here with the 2 kids because my little girl had school and stuff. And so I was out there for say 6 months, and then they came out.
And then they moved schools and everything like that.
Yeah. I mean, the youngest one she was born in 2019, so she was just a little baby.
Yeah.
The oldest one, she was like 4 then. So she was in school. Yeah, we had to take her out of school and everything. So she was a bit heartbroken about that. But she's really into her ice skating.
Well, there we go.
Yeah,
in the right gaff.
Yeah, I mean, like
Dad's a nutritional expert who knows all the top psychology, like everything. You know, don't worry, darling.
She's going to be an athlete. But I mean, here she'd always like get plates out of the fucking cupboards and skate around the floor with plates on her feet. And this was when she was like 2. And then we took her to an ice rink in Widnes of all the places. And she was still 2 at this time, and she just went off skating. She didn't want to hold on to the penguin or anything like that. So when we told her, she was like, trying to explain to a little kid that you're going to have to move to a new country. Yeah. And we said, well, you can start ice skating. Oh, when do we go? It was like, fuck everything else I was going to watch.
And is she doing that now?
Yeah. So now she's like on this sort of like Austrian team for ice skating.
Wow, like ice dancing, is it? Or?
Yeah, like figure skating.
Figure skating, yeah.
She does like 4 times a week now.
That's really cool.
So, yeah.
The happy family, fast rider. Simple as that, isn't it?
Simple as happy life.
So, like, yet again, we're talking, like, I'm talking about expectations, but working at Red Bull.
Yeah.
Is it
tell us some of the cool shit.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the questions that I asked in the interview, because they obviously, when you go for a job interview, they ask you, do you have any questions for us? And I said, what's it like to work for Red Bull? Because obviously, like, the company's a pretty cool company.
Mate.
And I was like, please just don't let it be like shit.
Yeah.
And they all went, yeah, it's mint. So it is mint. You know, it's just mint to play. Like,
so right, come on then. Who's the most famous? Who's the most enjoyable? And who's the biggest pain in the arse to work with?
Oh, I mean,
name drop, my man. Name drop.
I mean, I think, like for me, this is like, again going back to that time when I was doing my PhD. You can kind of go down different routes, right? You can kind of go down the research route where you go and do like research papers and shit like that. Or you can go down being like a nutritionist, you know, working with the athletes. And my supervisor sat me down and he said, right, you kind of need to think about what you're going to do because that'll determine what you do over the next few years. And I went home that night and this must have been like, this was at the start of my PhD, so say 2015, I went home and wrote down nutritionist for Red Bull. And then a few years later, 2020, I'm now working for Red Bull. So it was like,
fair play, that man.
And yeah, I mean, so I think what's cool is like I just get so excited when because we can see who's coming in the next week, and I see like this person's name, and I'm like super excited. And it's like I remember starting in say the November, and then in the February we had all the MotoGP lads come in. Yeah. So obviously I was just like,
so who's on the MotoGP list? Obviously Marquez.
So Marquez didn't really come until this year.
Oh, did he not?
No.
I thought he was a Red Bull athlete fit.
He is, yeah. But so how it kind of works is like the Red Bull athletes. We've got this centre in Austria. It's like imagine the world's sort of one of the world's best sports science departments, right?
It's just unreal.
It's like
they don't like one thing about Red Bulls. They don't fuck about, do they?
No.
They do it properly, and. The athletes basically come to us and then they'll see experts from different experts. They'll see specialists in different areas. So they'll speak to a medical doctor, physios, mental performance, me for the nutrition. They've got like an endurance test and that sort of thing. So, and that's like all the Red Bull athletes. I mean, there's 800 athletes across the world.
Is that how many there are?
Yeah. So, and that can be anything from, I mean, last week, one of the athletes we worked with, she won the indoor world skydiving contest. So it's like one of these wind tunnels.
Yeah.
And she does acrobatics and she got the world championship.
So
like that's just mad, isn't it? Like what?
But the first time you see that, you think, fucking hell, I'm going to write a meal plan for this. Do you know what I mean? So around February, all the MotoGP lads started coming then. So I walked into like this little athlete lounge where we've got like a breakfast bar and a kitchen, and my office is next to that. Obviously they want to put the nutritionist next to the fucking kitchen.
Put the cake down. Put the cake down. It's a test and you failed.
Like that, looking through the window. And like I walked in and like Brad Binder was there.
Not a chance.
His contract. But I walked into the athlete lounge and Brad Binder was sat there.
Shut up, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck.
But was this after, like, that is the best MotoGP race that's ever existed? I don't care how many you've watched. You know when he won the race on slicks?
Oh no, we were there. We went to that in Austria. That was the year. That was after. So this was like later in that year, but this was early on because this was around the February.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So it was like Brad turned up, and then it was like Johan Zarco, and then Danilo Petrucci, right? And Danilo's one of my favourite riders because he's just mint, isn't he?
Like every teacher has a favourite. So
yeah,
he's your favourite.
And like I remember walking in, Danilo was there, and I was like so excited, and it was just because he's, when you hear like someone's really nice guy,
but he actually is like,
and he's honestly he's mint, he's like, you still sort of keep in touch a little bit now, even though he's not Red Bull anymore, but just a really nice guy. I mean, they all are.
Is he no longer Red Bull at all?
No. So he's just he's just World Superbike, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's not sponsored by them personally in any way.
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
Here's a question: why aren't Red Bull involved in road racing? They're not involved in British either, are they? There's no British athlete.
No. I don't know.
There used to be.
I don't know.
Used to be on the Red Bull rookies, yeah. Red Bull rookies started in BSB.
Of course it did,
with Chris Jones and Honda. It was Honda. Robin Appleyard originally.
And they used to do in the British, didn't they? Because the Ducatis were Red Bull.
Yeah, Renegade were Red Bull.
Jonathan Ray was BSB.
But they've never had a presence in like...
Not the TT.
Well, Jonathan Ray came through that Red Bull rookies route.
Yeah,
that was part of Honda, yeah.
So do you work with the F1 lads as well?
Yeah. Well...
So you being a bike racer... were car races. How does that work?
It's not like cats and dogs, you know.
100%. It's 100% like cats and dogs. It is 100%. You've never been. You're coming to Macau. There is cats and dogs different. I'm telling you now.
In all the wrong places.
All the wrong places. But like, what's the most difficult job? What is the? But what is the most difficult field you've got to work with? Because, like you say, how do you make a meal plan for wind tunnel like acrobatics? You know.
Yeah, I mean, like there's not one thing's harder than the other. Like I said before, you've got to sort of break down what the sport is and then think, right, how do I work with that? But different things bring different challenges. I mean, I work with one lad who's a runner, and he'll run like 12-hour races, like 100 milers, and it's like preparing his body to do that is just difficult.
I was going to say, do you like look like what they need to achieve? So for a bike racer, for example, like we'll use Marquez. If you had Marquez in, then it's like, right, his current fitness level is this, and we're trying to get it to that.
Yeah.
It's
you work back around from that.
Yeah,
and say, right, this is what we need.
This is where we're trying to get to.
That's
yeah,
what we need to do
for X, Y, and Z reason. Yeah. So there's other people feed into that then as well. Like
so all the different departments. So I mean, like we get a lot.
What's an example of a bike racer? What would they be looking to like change?
Well, it just depends on what their weaknesses are.
Yeah, so it's individual.
Yeah. I mean, someone might need to lose a little bit of weight. Okay, so we need to look at what their training's doing, change that, and how the diet fits into that. Someone might actually need to gain. So
someone like Danilo would have been he's a big lad, and so he would have been looking to lose weight.
Yeah, I mean, like
I know you can't go into detail, but
well,
you can. You can. Don't tell him he can't do it. You go into much detail as you want, son.
I mean, like you say, like Danilo's a big lad, but he's not. Like he's not actually that big,
right?
And he's actually really lean. You know, like in terms of his body fat.
Yeah.
But he's just bigger than
the rest
of the MotoGP lads. I mean, he's not even like
not as big as you.
No. I mean, he's not. He's just like a normal sized guy, but he's quite stocky.
Yeah.
But like if you take someone like Brad is tiny.
Yeah. And Pedrosa and
yeah.
So do you work with Pedrosa still, even though he's not a racer?
On
P1 yesterday,
P1, didn't he? Yeah, P6 he finished, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I mean, this year I think KTM went 2, 4, and 6 yesterday.
I haven't seen all the results yet, but that's good going.
But I was about to say, with your connections at KTM, you should be able to get a KTM for the TT, no problem at all. Because like KTM and Red Bull are very close.
They don't make a 1 litre bike anymore,
do they?
Not a sports bike. Where have you been for the last 10 years, Dominic?
I have no idea. Not here, obviously.
No, they don't make a super
sports bike. For me was that RC8 thing.
RC8, yeah. And well, they do the Moto 2 thing, but it's limited number, only made 100 or something like that.
Must ask, we've had him on the show a few times. Billy Bolt.
Legend.
Is he just constantly like that? What's he like as far as chasing diets? Because he is the walking ambassador for Greggs.
Yeah.
And mate, every time I see his story, please go follow Billy Bolt, because every time I click on, he's stuffing a pasty down his neck, and I'm like, that guy, Stephen will be loving this. You know what I mean? He must. Who is Is he your most difficult client in the form of crack? Because obviously he's not an unfit lad. Far from
I mean, fucking hell, he can ride a bike.
Jesus
God.
And he is a big lad. Like
he is a big lad. Yeah, he's probably not far off the same size as me, really. But he's probably a bit bigger. But I mean, sometimes you've got to. Like, it's not like, okay, you're a Red Bull athlete, you have to work with me and you have to do what I say. Like, it's a works both ways. Yeah. You know, if they want to work with me, then I can help them.
Yeah.
But it's not like, right, I see him eating Greggs on fucking Instagram and ring him up saying, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
you want to commit to it. If you don't, you'll not be a Red Bull athlete for forever.
Exactly. And I mean, if he might go and do Romaniacs, or he might go and do a hard enduro or Erzberg, I can sort of help him prepare for that in terms of what to eat the day before and stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if he's winning, I'm not gonna.
It's one of those. He's a typical Wall's End lad, and
Wall's End.
He is though, isn't he? He 100% is. You know what I mean? He's up for a crack. He's up for a banter. You know what I mean? Obviously, takes his job. You don't become world champion like multiple times without taking your job seriously.
Yeah.
But what he's portraying on Instagram, it's fun. It's great to watch and stuff like that. And it's just what I would like to hear is that that more serious side of Billy. But he obviously brings that to the table, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean. Billy, honestly, is actually a really intelligent lad.
I think you can tell that. I've never met him, but I think you can tell that.
He's the hardest working lad.
Honestly,
in
I know he's a bit of a daft lad and likes to laugh and stuff. So we had, fucking hell, we had.
Come on.
So we have these like athlete summits where, okay, they might be all the French athletes or like a selection of French. So we had all the UK athletes, and it basically just turned into a fucking big piss up, I think. Right?
Excellent. Vodka Rebels.
I looked on Instagram, and there's Billy eating a whole fucking hot dog sausage in one go. Just opens his mouth and puts the whole thing in and fucking swallows it.
Yeah, he's not doing the North East proud there, is he?
I've never seen that done before.
And I was just like,
but he is like, without a doubt, he's unbelievable. He is unbelievable.
Going back to what I mean is like, he's got this Ride Nutrition or whatever it is that he's like a supplement company. But we sat down and talked about different supplements, because obviously that's one of the areas that I work in, is like explaining about supplements. And he knew about different carbohydrates. He knew about what these sort of supplements do, and not the vast majority of athletes don't know about that. So I was actually like really a bit surprised, but happy with that.
Any of the athletes, do you have to work, and you don't have to mention any names, but have any illnesses that you have to like operate around or anything like that?
Good question.
I've always wondered that with
like asthma and stuff like that.
Will
you tell us? Is that that's a great question.
Well, I can't eat milk without poo myself inside out. Sorry for anyone that's listening, but and I wonder, there must be people like in top level sport who have that as well. Like, how do you account for that?
Well, we have we have different specialists. So my area is the performance, but we've also got dietitians in like the network.
Right.
So I get them. So any sort of clinical issues, I get them to speak to a sports dietitian.
Right. And then do you just weave that into your program somehow?
Yeah. So
if you have to avoid certain stuff,
I kind of see the overall progress of things.
Yeah.
But then the day-to-day stuff, they'll speak to the dietitian about.
Got you.
Here's a question. So when Marquez did his
the
shoulder,
top of the shoulder, yeah. So when a rider like Marquez or any of the Red Bull athletes, all 800 of them, God love you, 800 people to look after, that's huge. Like when they get injured, how involved do you get into that process? Is it like a full everyone, like the whole team at Red Bull has to go and play their part, or is it quite?
It kind of depends on the athlete. I mean, obviously with Mark, he just gets the absolute
creme de la creme.
The platinum package.
Yeah, do you know
but is that coming from like, obviously there's lots of other parties in there, isn't there? Like Honda and all the rest of it. So it's like not just Red Bull.
I don't know like who. Okay, Mark crashes and hurts his does his shoulder in.
Yeah.
I don't know. He'll have obviously specialists who
he'll have dealt
with or whoever that he'll go and speak to. I mean, they just go and see the best. It's not like they'll just go and
a few £1 million contract from Honda can do that for you, can't it?
They'll just go and see the best person probably in the world about that, and then get their opinion. But then you've got other athletes who might be like a downhill rider, or who are they're not top of MotoGP. No disrespect.
It's a different level.
It's a different sport. It's a different sport. Yeah.
So then they might get injured and go to the hospital and whatnot. But then it's like, right, go and see the boys in Austria and do your rehab there.
That's unreal. I tell you, now that we have fully established your critical role at Red Bull, and so you've been there, you moved.
Do you work with Matt Jones? The mountain bike, is he Red Bull athlete?
I've heard the name, but I've never met him.
I love his YouTube videos. I love his YouTube videos, and I was just thinking, there is he? I'm sure he's Red Bull athlete. He's had a few injuries and stuff. Sorry, no.
Oh no, I'm just like, so it's it like, so you pack the family up, gone to Austria, establish your role. You work with all these clients. You become such an integral part of sport, extreme sports, and then you get on the phone to your gaffer and go, "I'm going back to the Manx Grand Prix 2022.
Yeah.
How did they view that? Or were they over the moon for you to go back to the roads? Like, you talk us through.
Do you mean like the managers?
Yeah,
or...
like the risk element, you know what I mean? There is a huge, as we all know, with the roads, there is a risk element. So one of their prize chess pieces on the board going, I'm just going to fuck off for 2 weeks. It's like, whoa, hold on, son.
Yeah.
How did that go down?
To be fair, they're really like, they're mint with holidays and stuff like that. And
so they actually know that you go to the banks.
I'm just going to the Bahamas.
What you do. Like, it's not like a surprise or I'm just going to Tenerife or something. Like, they know what you do, because like racing, like plans change and stuff like that, and if it was just going on holiday, they probably wouldn't be so flexible.
Yeah.
But I mean, the management and the sort of staff are mint, you know, and they I think they kind of like that you do something a bit different. So
it shows a mindset, doesn't it? And like I get it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when I said it's a mint company to work for, because they kind of like the fact that someone does something a little bit different. And then obviously when you sort of like you think, what, you're going to go back to the UK and race this year? Because obviously last year I was in Austria and I raced over there. When I say raced, it's just a different ball game over there. You don't really have like, you've got the IDM, which is a bit like BSB for Germany.
Right.
And then you have like Alpe Adria, which is like, I guess it's like Thunder Sport sort of.
Mm-hmm.
But then basically you have like track day companies that run races. So you do 3 or 4 20-minute sessions, and then you do 2 races at the end of the day.
Right.
There's no scrutineering, and there's no license. Because I was like, fucking hell, okay, what license do I need? And the guy said, oh, you don't need a license. You just need your boat. You just need a driving license. I was like, what? And I got there. I was like, what do we do about scrutineering and noise testing? And they were like, obviously fucking Austrian. What? Like, none of that. But the bikes, I'll give them fair, the bikes are always mint.
Yeah, because they're probably sort of the opinion that if you want to ride a piece of shit, then do it. Yeah.
And some fast boys out there. I mean, so that was a bit of an eye opener. Is like, right, you just have a ride round and then you
get mugged in.
Yeah. So it's not like, and if you crash, you can pick your bike up and carry on.
Yeah.
And they think we're fucking mental because if you crash, you can't carry on.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah. So I mean, yeah, like working where I work in Austria is like the main headquarter for Red Bull is a couple of miles away, and we work in a little centre outside of. So the main HQ is in a place called Fuschel, and that's where all the like the marketing and all the like the heads of work. But then they come to us for like say physio and things like that. So you get to know the people who are like at the top of the chain, and then once they find out that you sort of do these sports, they are interested in it, and it's good because now they're kind of directing me towards working with the KTM lads, and
that's cool
because you can talk the language, right? And
that was my thing, and like that's like leading on to my next question is, when you're like in a room with MotoGP lads.
Yeah.
And like, oh, so do you ride bikes again? I'm actually a TT rider.
Yeah.
What is their reaction to that? You know what I mean? Well, they're the top premier class in motorcycle racing. That's MotoGP. You can't dispute that.
Yeah, heads probably
but then you go, no, it must, but I'm biased, but the TT is the world's biggest motorsport event. People in Formula One, cars, NASCAR, everyone in the world knows of the prestige of the TT. Yeah, so when you turn around to Marquez or Brad Binder, what are their reaction like?
Well, it's not like I sort of go in there and say, "Hi, my name's Steve, and I do the Manx," and like John O'Perry's going to probably laugh his arse off now because we have this sort of running joke where, "Have you done the Manx?" Because it just sort of always pops up in a conversation when you rode the TT. But then, so he's probably watching this now and he'd be laughing his tits off. But like, it just sort of. Because obviously the athletes go and see all the different departments and they know that they race bikes and they'll kind of say, have you met Stephen yet, the nutritionist? Oh, do you know what he does? And it's like...
so it gets introduced by you.
Then you might follow them, say, on Instagram and then they follow you back because they know because you've just spoken to them that day and then they'll sort of look through and then they'll go the next day, like, you do the Isle of Man. And you're like... Yeah. And then they'll go, fucking hell, you're crazy.
Yeah.
But... with the GP lads, it's like some of them are interested and they think you're a bit mental for doing it, but then some of them are like really interested and like they kind of want you to sit down and go through a lap with them.
That's what I'm talking about. Like that obviously helps your career working with GP riders of that, because it's not like you're doing like the odd little track day around like Mallory now and then. You know what I mean? It's like you're competing at a serious high level. But who was? I want you to name drop yet again. That's I love a good name drop. But who was the most interested person? When they've found out you're a TT rider, who's the biggest name that's gone? I want to know more.
Probably Miguel Oliveira and Johan Zarco.
Really?
Because they actually wanted me to sit down and talk them through a lap. and then you could see the cogs sort of being like,
how the fuck do you do that?
no, I mean, like, they fancy to go. You know, like, not like they'll do it, but it was like,
yeah.
Have you spoken to like the Wilson family or Phillips and just gone, I've got Zarko here. He's really thinking about it. He's a couple of vodka Red Bulls in. Get him on the phone now. Hello.
I asked Danilo if he'd come and do a pit stop. Can you imagine that? But he said no.
Oh,
long story
that's
short.
good. That is good.
Which that would have been amazing, wouldn't it? Can you imagine?
Without a doubt.
But because we were just sort of laughing and joking about it, and I said, you should come and do a pit stop. And he was like, I can come and do a pit stop. I was like, fucking right, you can. And then I was like, can you imagine?
Imagine 6 foot of him screaming at you, going, put it in, like 40 seconds.
Danilo Petrucci cleaning the screen.
Just pushing him out the way, you useless battling, riding off. I could just see it now. That'd be absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I'll tell you what, we've got to move on to the next chapter. Next chapter, because we're here, we're doing BSB.
Yeah.
How many times have you done BSB, on a little side note?
So the first time was 2020.
Yeah.
Remember that year, it was COVID and it was every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yes.
So obviously the TT was cancelled and everything else was sort of cancelled as well. Like clubs weren't really doing anything, and then BSB pulled it together, didn't they? And said, right, it started a bit later, didn't it? But then it was every 2 weeks.
Yes.
And I thought, fuck it, let's
go.
Do you know what I mean? And you're either going to qualify or you're not. So the first meet was Donington Park, and
what were you riding in stock?
BMW S1000, you know, the Gen 3.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like a rabbit in the headlights sort of thing. You know, the first time, like your first FP1 in stock, that was
scary.
Yeah, fucking right. It is, yeah, because like you can't sort of. There's no warm up, is there? It's like bang straight in, and then. Like if there's no gap, someone will make one, don't they?
Yeah.
In stock though, but I mean, it was good because it sort of brought you on as a rider, and you sort of learn, right, this is what it's about.
It does bring you on.
Yeah, fucking right. You know, it's like, you know, the seriousness of BSB. I kind of like that. You know, it's like, right, everything starts on time.
It's very
everyone's sort of.
It's a proper job, isn't it?
Yeah, proper job. Everyone's professional. Like everyone's just on it, and you know, I kind of like that.
Yeah. So. We've gone from like even discussing like the Manx, you know, you can like being the I hate saying this, but it is the amateur TT. You know, it's being referred to as that. You know, it's a level to be able to go in and then be able to set up with the TT. You made the decision to put your Billy Big Ball pants on and go right. We're off to the TT after winning the Manx in glorious fashion. Now, I can never remember his Duncan. No, it's not Duncan. I'm looking at him and it's totally not. Whose bike you racing for?
Alistair Cowan.
Alistair Cowan. Why Duncan? It's another Scottish name. Alistair Cowan. Well, I'm never getting a ride on his bike ever after that comment there straight away. But no, they've had a lot of success over the last several years, and you've obviously been able to go there on the ZX6.
Yeah.
You won the Manx. Do I dare say comfortably? No, it was some good racing all the way through. And
are you riding the same bike at the TT?
No, I'm just on the TC Racing.
Ah, right, okay.
Yeah.
Which is a
Fireblade.
So you're just riding a big bike at the TT?
Yeah.
You're not riding a 600
No,
or
600 was just not. There's just no real options about for the 600,
Really?
which I'm kind of a bit gutted about because I really enjoy riding a 600 round the Isle of Man.
Yeah.
But,
So this will be your first time riding 1,000 man there?
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's what I mean. It's out with the big boys now. So
don't nod at me. No, but
The
so
most modest
how
man
much?
I've ever met.
How much? No, but how much are you looking forward to it? Is it?
yeah, I mean, like obviously you sort of have goals, don't you, with your riding, the things that you really want to do, and riding a big bike at the TT has just been one of those things I've always wanted to do because it's just proper, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just proper. You know, riding a 600 is mint, but until you get on a big bike, you've not really experienced the full potential of it, have you? Do you know what I mean? So just really excited now to step up and get there on the big bike. So, but yeah, riding the TC Racing Fireblade, which is kind of why we built that one.
Yes.
The one, my bike, which is in Alistair's colours.
That's what's thrown me here, because obviously Alistair, it's got a very distinguished look of the yellow and the blue. It looks absolutely fantastic. He's run them colours for a few years, and obviously you're here in the paddock, and I'm like, oh, I'm kind of looking around for who I thought was Duncan, but it's obviously Alistair. And I'm like, oh, where the hell is he? But no, so what? Why? So you've just shit TC Milo Ward rode for them last year, right. And then over the years I've had loads of different riders, and they do an awesome job of bringing on newcomers. But you're not a newcomer, but you're a newcomer
to the TT,
to the TT.
Yeah.
So what are your expectations stepping up? Is it stepping up into the BSB? Is that kind of expectation a fair comparison?
Yeah, I mean, you just know that it's like, okay, you go to the Manx Grand Prix, and I knew I'd be there or thereabouts, but to put it in perspective, is like you go to the TT and those boys are doing lap record speed at the Manx Grand Prix on the first night of practice.
Yeah.
So, you go to the Manx Grand Prix and you're doing sort of, doing a 120 at the Manx is quite like...
You're huffing. It's called the Tommy Club.
The Tommy Club.
The Tommy Club. Yeah. It's
and
like,
it's
not
like
many
a
people in that
special
mind.
thing. And then you go to the TT and a 120 is just like expected, isn't it, really, on a 600?
It's
really, right.
Yeah. So like,
first night
Dino and that will go out and do what, 123s, 124s?
I do like 22s in the first night.
He's trying not to smile when he says that.
No, but you know when you put it like that, it's mental, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's just
Class.
So that's what I mean, is it's like, right, you just got to sort of reset. You're out with the big boys now. Like, leave the ego at the door and just get on with it. It's just a new learning experience. I'm just looking forward to, okay, we've done the Manx. We've had a good run there.
Yeah.
Like,
do you feel under a bit of pressure to perform, having won the Manx?
No, not really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a hobby, but it's not. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying.
Don't get me started on that again.
It doesn't pay your mortgage, right? But you want to win.
Yeah.
I get that.
I've got him on the hook. But that's
he's easy to get on the hook, Dom. He's, aren't you?
All
right,
hobby
riders.
Here we go. Hobby riders, I know. But no.
I'm just looking forward to the next thing. Like, right, reset, new chapter, new bike. Let's go.
I forgot to ask this before moving on to the TT, but the 2-year gap of like changing everything in your life, working at Red Bull, did that make you a better rider? Just working in that environment, with the people around you, the atmosphere, and then when you came back to the Manx, I shit you not, I know I was joking, but you are a different bloke to who I met. It was just never just hello Dom, you're all right, and that was the first met you just kept yourself to yourself, and then it was literally you're just a different bloke, and like it. Like a confidence thing, do you think? Like, no, massive. No, not. Like, people mix confidence with ego. Far from ego, you could just see this calmer. You were never raged. Never like Manx. It was. Just hello, you're all right, and it was just like I was almost like step back on who the hell. That was without saying anything.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting to ask that question. Is like, has it made you?
Changed me massively. So I think it's changed a lot of things. Like, I mean, just the whole lifestyle is completely different, and it again that started another new chapter. I mean, have you ever been to Austria as a country? It's just mint. It's a little bit like, it reminds me of the Isle of Man.
Trees.
Lots of trees, lots of cows, and
two of my favourite things.
I'm saying nothing.
It's a different story. And
sorry, I'm thinking the hills up. Oh, anyway, carry on. Sorry,
but I mean, it kind of just changed a lot of things. Do you know what I mean? It was like, right, you've sort of left this country behind. You go to a new place. It's just like everything's just so different, but in a good way. And then going back to the Manx Grand Prix, it was like, obviously I was confident because I've been
at the front.
I'd sort of been right. I've got a great bike. I've got a good team. Do you know what I mean? Because Alistair was there. I mean, Craig Neve was there as well, and his lads sort of like nicely really helped me out. Do you know what I mean? Because I was a bit stuck for support, and those lads are like, look, just we'll get stuck in. You know what I mean? And,
you'll be all right.
Yeah. So I went in there confident that, right, I've got a good bike with me, and I know where I'm going. And it was like, but you just never know what's going to happen there. You don't know who's going to be quick and stuff.
When you won that race, did you get proper pissed on the night time? They were a big part.
No,
did the nutritionist go out the window for that night?
So that was but
Billy Bob was looking through his story going, it's going to buckle any minute now. Here it is.
Here we go. I'm going to get this picture of him in a chippy. But no, because I had to get the ferry at 8 o'clock the next morning.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah.
Shite bag.
You'd want to. I could just imagine celebrating that in a big way. It would be really cool.
But you know what it's like at the end. You're so done from being out on the bike all the time. And don't get me wrong, that race that I won wasn't easy because we had a couple of problems with the bike. So to finish after being I think it was P1 every practice session, to go into the race and have problems, it was like, fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean? It was just not.
What was that like?
Well,
nothing terminal, obviously. But...
No, we ran out of fuel in practice because when you're sort of on and off the throttle, we're hitting traffic. When you're on and off the throttle, you just use more fuel.
Yeah.
So we ran out of fuel in practice, so we absolutely brimmed the tank. And I think what's happened is it's been too full. So obviously, as I've dropped the clutch, it's just been dying, and it was misfiring all the way to Ballacrane. So like you're going down, you're tucked in, going around Crosby.
That's a lot of miles.
It's a long way. Like you know, so you're going up towards Ballagary, and the bike was sort of like cutting out.
All you just kept going.
I just kept going. I just thought, because this is one of the things you learn at TT is like you just keep going, especially in a race. You know, you're not going to just pull in. But it was just like cutting out. Not like massively so, but just enough. But I was waiting for somebody, you know, and you just see...
You're going to get buzzed any minute now, yeah.
And it never happened. And then the bike cleared by Ballacrane. So I just carried on. It must have been that, because once the fuel had dropped a little bit, the bike was okay that way. And then we found there was like a little screw loose on one of the throttle bodies. So whenever I come into a slow corner, you put the clutch in, the bike would just rev its nuts off and drive forward. So... I thought, obviously, like I just thought it was the clutch, so I was riding down
hang on, I'll just roughly translate that. What he's saying is, I was riding around the TT, and the fucking throttle was sticking open when I'm going in the corners, and I carried on riding it.
Because I'm a bloke.
Roughly translated, that's what that meant.
But I thought it was the fucking clutch, right? So I'm going down towards Quarter Bridge, and then between Quarter Bridge and Braddon, I'm sort of adjusting the clutch. While you're like that, so you're sort of watching where you're going, adjusting the clutch, and then carrying on. But it wasn't that. So,
what a man! What a man!
But that's what I mean. All these little things happen around there, don't they?
But they're the stories, aren't they?
It's a big lap, and then lots of all these things happen. Which
you can't afford to just pull over and be like,
no. I mean, you just don't want to be stuck out there, do you?
You find a pub. Look, where's the next pub?
There's 7 and always break down on the left. There's a top bit of tip for me straight away. But I'll tell you what, before we wrap up this interview, I must ask, because have you got any tips, like for listeners who really want to go down your path? You know what? Even as cliche as it sounds, what's your biggest, best advice that you could give to someone? And it could be as corny as you like, you know what I mean? You know, no, but seriously though, it's been great to hear your story, because the fact is, actually, you know what, I keep digging in, have parents that are willing, you know. Are you going to be like that with your 2 kids as well?
I guess I'm a little bit different, because let's say my little girl who's into her ice skating, like I'm just going to open up her eyes to say, like, look, if this is what you want to do, you can do it, as long as you do it 100%.
Yes.
And like I said, whatever she wants to go and do, I mean, both of them, the little one, she's probably going to be a Red Bull athlete, because she's just full send. Do you know what I mean? But
the next Travis Pastrana, have you met him?
No.
That is my dream interview. Yeah. No offence. But no, but he's no longer Red Bull, is he?
No.
He's a coffee firm.
Right. Yeah.
He's a coffee firm.
Yeah, Red Bull. Anyway, sorry, carry on. So, like, your little girl,
I mean, like I said, I just sort of opened their eyes to what they can do.
Let them go and explore whatever sport or whatever 100%. They want to do. If that's what they want to do.
Yeah, not many. If they want to go down and do that, I'll support them and do it. And I mean, I guess, like, if you sort of wanted to give advice, it'd just be like, don't put limits on yourself. I mean, and sort of,
I like that.
You know, like, listen to your gut feeling a little bit, because like for me, when I was in that factory, people were telling me, you've only got 30 years left, right? Lads who are about to retire, and I'm 16, and they're telling you, like, you're there till you retire. And you know, it's like when you start, it's like right, no. there's lads, you've only got 35 years left. And that was just fucking depressing, right? And I thought, there's just no way I can do this job for the rest of my life, even though everybody was telling me, once I left, everyone was telling me, you're fucking mental. Like,
get back to work. You'll be back. And stuff like that. Like, it will be.
Yeah, you know, get back to work. Like, you've got a good job, you're mad, and this, that, and the other. But I just sort of stuck to my guns and did it. And I think you've just got to kind of, like, listen to your gut feeling and not be afraid to, like, fucking go for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could have easily turned around with this job and gone, fucking hell, if I go, I'm going to have to move all the family, take my little girl out of school, leave all my friends, because I had a business here. I'd have to leave the business.
And it's a huge risk.
Yeah. And up until that point, I'd only been to Austria once for a weekend, right? And then I didn't know if I'd like the job, because even though it sounds like amazing on paper, you could get there and it'd be shit.
Yeah. But different life, different culture, different everything.
100%. Yeah. But then
it's hard enough making a decision to just change jobs, never mind uprooting your entire family and go. No, I can appreciate
during
that.
COVID.
Yeah, true.
How
are you sitting down with them balls?
But I mean, even like with the Manx, the first year I went to the Manx, I didn't have anybody with me. I just went by myself in a van.
Did you really?
Yeah. I just thought, like, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And you know what it's like there. Everybody mucks in and helps each other. And I sort of got there, and they were like, right, we can help you. We'll do your warmers. And like, I didn't even have a pit crew. I had to ask people who were there.
Bailey.
Yeah, just while I was there. I mean, Russ Mountford, I said, Russ, do us a favour. Do you think you could do...
That's class.
And he was like, yeah, I'll come and do it. And then James Powell from No Limits, he was like, all right, we'll do it. So I just went and I just thought...
That's just racing all over that, isn't it?
I'll make it up as I go along. So I guess that would be the motto, really. Just make it up.
No, it is. I know, I like, and people should do that. Listen to your gut. No, I do. I really, really like that. Have you got any more final questions for...
I was really interested to hear about... sorry.
I tell all my mates I've got a doctor mate, and that's you.
I was interested to hear about that. About especially the Red Bull bike lads. You want to hear? Yeah,
where are you?
Good to know.
Yeah.
And when we turn the cameras off, you can tell who all the back.
Yeah, he's an absolute knob, him, like straight off the bat.
That's another story.
Go for it.
So you know, like in the UK, the way we all say bell end, right? You know, it's just a term, isn't it? Like, fucking bell end.
Yeah. I say it frequently. Yeah.
Right. Well, obviously, they don't have a German translation for that.
Shut up, man.
So I fucking turned around in work and said, what? Fucking bell end. So then I had to sit down and explain to these people in work who are German what a bell end is. And it's like, what's the figurative
Please tell me
and
you
what's
didn't.
the actual? So that's my contribution to the German language.
Excellent.
Get your schnitzel out there.
Yeah. Schnitzel end.
On that note, on that bombshell,
What a place to learn to leave the podcast.
It's got to be done, mate. That's probably one of the best finishes we've ever had. So, obviously, a bit of housekeeping on this side of things. Thank you so much to Colchester Kawasaki. They have been on board with us for a long time. Obviously, Chrissy's main sponsor. They've continued to keep this going for grace. Cannot thank them enough. Patrons, we're getting a few members each time, which is really important because without the patrons, we simply wouldn't get the show up on the road. Bennett's Perch, hold on, you've actually got a message from Bennett.
Yeah, it's just a note to say that the booking for their next track day, it's Snetterden on the 13th of July, is now open. I attended one with them recently and it was a fantastic day. So if you're a Bennett's customer or a bike social, I cannot believe you got that. Where did you get that?
Would you like to explain that, Josh?
Not really, but you bastard.
I'd love to hear the story, Dom.
Anyway, the track days are great, and the next one is Snetterden on the 13th of July, so they're a fantastic day.
For our audio listeners who are listening, there is a very, very bent bobbin on the.
I can't believe you've got that.
Oh, mate, this is on the trophy cabinet. I'm knocking the dog's photos off the top straight up there. So Josh has got a bit of a sweat on. I'm loving it.
Embarrassing moment.
We're just going to leave that there.
So. I'm gonna have to tell him now. So we were here on Wednesday or Thursday.
Indeed, yeah.
Before obviously we're here for the BSB round, and Bennett's had their customer track day on. and they said, "Do you want the lads, the guys and girls, the Bennett's were like, do you want to come down for the day on?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got a road bike. I'll come on the road bike. I'm actually got to pick it up, so I'll come across." Yeah, great. And we're making some videos and stuff. Great, and they've got a really cool partnership with a company called Renaissance Racing. And basically he's got these replica superbikes from various eras of British superbike, but early noughties, like a Hodson Ducati rep and a Cadbury's Boost rep and so on and so forth. Lovely things. Do you want to go and have a couple of laps on any one of these?
Now,
yeah, sure.
Every rider would be saying yes. You know what I mean? 100% saying yes.
Like
exactly.
And Grace has got the footage, so she'll put it in at some point. There'll be a vlog about it at some point. And
fair play to you, Josh.
Yeah, I did like 3 laps on it and bloody crashed the thing at Cascades.
It was the weirdest.
It was just a weird crash. Yeah.
Anyway, you know when every rider says it, and you just did, yeah, mate.
We've all been there.
Yeah. You know. Well, everyone was saying to us tonight at dinner who've watched it. They were like, "But you were so offline." I was like, "No, I'd locked the front wheel 30 meters before that, which is why I was offline." But it was just one of, you just have one of those things, you just get caught out. I wasn't riding flat out or anything like that. I literally just just a really weird crash.
This is now the podcast shit look trophy.
So what makes it worse is these bikes are immaculately prepared. They've never been crashed. This is a new business. He's just getting going with it. It's a fantastic concept, and I would urge anybody who wants to come and do it. It's like, I think it's roughly £500. There's some excess to pay on like an insurance thing. I'm sure Grace can put a link in here for all the details, but the concept of it's absolutely fantastic. The bikes were great to ride. I fell off it, and I don't actually know how I fell off it, but I did.
No, but the thing is, it was a perfect gentleman about it. You know what I mean? A lot of people would get on there and go, "Oh shit, what's the worst?" And you know what? He's there. He wants to be on track days. He's involved in Bennett's, and he's good as gold, wasn't he?
Yeah, so. Fantastic. Kieran from Renaissance, and obviously he's like partnered up with Bennett's, and they're doing track days. But anybody who's fancying getting out on track, it's a fantastic way on some iconic motorbikes, and but don't fall off them.
Yeah. Don't tuck the front.
You might not be as understanding the next time, but as you can imagine, I felt like a
wally. You do, man. You do, man.
It's just like, there's nothing to say about it over this. It's one of them things, and that it happens. Yeah. But July the 13th is the next one at Snetterton.
Fantastic. I'll have to get to that. Is that before the BSB round? Or
I don't think it's directly before. I'm not sure. After that,
because there's 7-day ruling and all that stuff. But anyway, we could open up another can of worms. We're going to have to tidy this up because you've got to get ready for tomorrow. Good luck. Shake my hand. Absolute superstar. Thank you
pleasure.
So much. Dr. Stephen Smith, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Josh, you've done a grand job.
Thanks for having me.
See you in a bit, lads. Thank you so much.
Chasin The Racin. Powered by Colchester Kawasaki. Part of the Global Moto Group, we supply new Aprilia, Moto Guzzi, Vespa, Royal Enfield, Kawasaki, Sim, Mutt and Benelli motorcycles.